So in this episode we're looking at backscene dilemmas. Hi, welcome back to Holt & Warren 009. I'm Mark, and as you can see we're not in the railway shed and we're not at the modelling desk. We're outside, we're at the top of my garden, and I'm joined with some friends, and I don't know if you just saw that, but we're also joined by quite a flock of starlings that have just all decided to take off at the same time. But you can understand why at the back of some of my videos I get these country rural sounds now. It's a lovely day. It's just nice to come up here and watch the sheep. All these are ewes, they're all in lamb, so within the next week or two they'll be going back up to the farm, which is just at the top there, and giving birth, and then in about, I don't know, July, August time, they'll be on your dinner plate somewhere, I suppose. Yeah, it's reality, isn't it? Anyway, rural scenes. As you can see, we've got a beautiful scene here, we've got trees in the background, we've got hills, hedges, pylons. It's just a bit of inspiration on the sort of background scene I want. I'm a country boy at heart. I've always been brought up in villages and lived in villages, and so this is what I want to recreate. So I mentioned dilemmas. At the end of the last video I was saying I want to get the back scene done because I need to build the scenery up to that, and the dilemmas were I didn't want to go down the road of using a printed paper back scene because the damp gets into that and it just peels off. Some of the self-adhesive ones seem to be printed on the plastic material, so that should be damp proof. There's also the point that I have a river that's running through the scenery of my model railway and it goes off scene, and I need to be able to blend that into the back scene. I don't want it just butting up to a field and just suddenly stopping. That's, you know, totally wrong, isn't it? I've also considered painting it, so there's different materials, different methods of actually getting the back scene there. I've also got to consider height. Now most of my scenery seems to come up about, what, 6, 7, 8 inches, but I'm just worried about the village in the top corner, and just wait a second while this clears. More lovely holiday makers taking off from Luton Airport, heading somewhere nice for their holiday. Bit early for Easter, but maybe they're going away for Mother's Day. When's that? It's only a couple of weeks away now, isn't it? Has that gone away yet? Yeah, I can cope with that. We've still got the birds in the background. The sheep are being very quiet for me, so that's good. Back to the back scene. So yes, the village in the corner is going to be a bit higher. And now we're picking up cars. It's, you know, the countryside's supposed to be quiet. Don't believe it. So yeah, the village in the corner is quite high. So the back scenes I'm using, the ones I can buy, will they be high enough to go behind the village? Do I need to put those back scenes up higher and then try and mould them, transition them into the lower level and the higher level? And how do I go about that? It's all right, the starlings have just gone quiet, so it's a bit peaceful now. So I think the best thing to do is go into the shed and point out a few of these considerations I've got to make and see how we get on. I've got the material to make the actual boards up with, but I've got to do some measuring on that, and I will probably do that down on this decking that I'm sitting on at the moment. Anyway, let's go into the shed. Out of the sunshine into the shed, which is a shame because as you've seen it's a beautiful day out there, and it did take me a while to get in here, about 15-20 minutes, but the old starlings started up again and it was absolutely beautiful. There's thousands of them, I'm not kidding, it's thousands of them out there. I tried filming it but I couldn't get my lens in focus, it's just all blurred. Anyway, the wife tried it, so I might put in an odd shot.
On the ground. It's amazing, isn't it?
You can just hear their wind beats.
Yeah, there they go. Oops.
flying around. So where are we here? We've taken the bridge away. That's upstairs for safekeeping. The bit that fell off I've stuck back in, and I've also bolstered it up a bit with, as I said I was going to do, with the hot glue gun. So hopefully those bits won't fall off again. Down here we have made a start on the road bed. We'll get onto that at a later time. So yes, it's the back scene. I want to get that in place because it's got a slot in the back here. And one of the predicaments I was saying was about how high it's got to be. Now at the back here, and I've got another cardboard template. Been using that. Oh, it's a little screw there. Been using a few of those, haven't I? So that will sit in here. Why is it not? It's because the road's in the way. So that will sit in there. And then we need some houses on it. And these are the little cardboard mock-ups that I've been building. And I think that's about the highest ones that it's not sharp. Is there any more around? Yeah, there's another couple there. So this is just to get an idea of how high the village is going to be and how high the back scene needs to be. So if we put those in there, that gives us an idea. Now I've got to put a back scene in here, and it's whether that will go around and be high enough to go behind the houses, or whether I've got to kind of transition it up and then just maybe have clouds or something behind the houses or something like that. So let's measure this up, shall we? I'm just going to move because I've just thought of something. Okay, apologies, there's some strobing going on. I can't get the lighting levels down here right for the video, and it's so tiny and dark in here anyway. Anyway, back to the scenes. So over here I've got a nice long pointy stick, as you can see, and I can point to the village. The village is here, and this one on the right hand side is the tallest building. So what I need is the scenery to come above that, the picture element of the scenery. So I'll say the picture element. Over this side we've got the existing back scene, and that's obviously the top of it, and then this is the picture element here. So why the black in between? Well, we've got a fascia on the front of the railway, and that's painted black, one to try and make it a little bit more invisible, otherwise you'd have to paint all the different levels of ground, wouldn't you? But to have that black and then to do a black border at the top there, I just feel like it would make it kind of, so you're concentrating, your view is concentrating from the top of the scenery there to the front of the scenery here. You're not being distracted by anything above or below it. Is that a good idea or not? I don't know. Anyway, what we've got to do is make sure that this scenery line is in line with over the top of the village. So I don't know if it comes up on the camera, but over here we have got the top of the scenery comes in line with the joint in the woodwork. So we can just follow that around, and if I lift you over the top, so what we're doing is we're coming in at this level here, which follows through, and it comes to here. I've rested a piece of cardboard there because I've already had a little bit of a play here. So if I get another long pointy stick, which has just got wedged in, there we go. If I rest that on top of that cardboard, and hopefully the cardboard won't collapse as I'm doing it, and then rest it more or less at the same height this end. Okay, it's dropped a little bit. But you can see that there, well, I hope you can see that there is very, very close. I'll actually take you in a bit closer and then you can see what we're up against. The picture element of the back scene will come to about halfway up that strip of wood. Now, if I'm using a building like this, it's going to be a bit high. And even this one here, which is just 2 stories, and that's the chimney roof height just there, it's still going to be, the scenery is going to come in about here. Okay, so that's the predicament. What are the solutions? And I think I've come up with 5. It might be 6, but certainly 5. But where are we working from at the moment? Just to refocus my mind. The board behind us has got a Pico seam sheet on it, which is 12 inches high. And I'm using the levels of that to work out the levels here of what I need to do, what I need to adjust to get the image that I want. So, solution 1 would be to continue that back scene straight the way round. But as we've already discussed, that will give us a limited view above the roof of this building. So, we could actually move the back scene here up slightly, but then we would end up with a step. Now that's not a problem as far as the paperwork is concerned, because we can cut it off at 45 degrees and hopefully it blend in, look fairly tidy and smart. The problem is though, is the picture on that scene will be higher than the picture on this scene. Now if it's just buildings different level, it doesn't matter. Woodland you can get away with it because you do get steps and banks in woodland. But it's the sky, isn't it? The sky will come across here and suddenly end at a sharp edge. And although you can hide all this join with a building, a large building or a tree, it's not going to look right. And the cloud line might come through here and then suddenly it's up here. So that's not something, it's going to look contrived, isn't it? I think it's going to look like, well, I wanted it higher there, so I've just stuck it at different levels. And I don't think that's kind of the image I'm after. So the next thing to do would be to actually put the whole back scene, instead of running it through on this level, is to jack the whole thing up 2 inches. Now if there's any gaps underneath, we can mask those up by putting brick walls or hedges or something to cover any gaps. But when you come round here, the back scene will be this level here. But if you want to match it to the one at the other side, it's going to have to come down on the slope. Now we can't jack up the one on this side because the river is at a lower level, and that would leave a big gap, and obviously where there's a river you can't put in a brick wall across the river or bushes to hide that gap. So that needs to stay at a lower level. This is at a higher level. So you can't again put the back scene on at a slant, because otherwise all your buildings would be at a slant. Now I know there was an example recently, what was it called, the Crooked House, was it, that pub that got knocked down a few years ago without planning permission? But on the whole you don't get rows of houses all at an angle, especially if they're individual houses. You might get the odd row that's slightly bending, and trees even if they grow on a hillside, they come out and then they grow upwards. They kind of self-adjust, don't they? So the back scene would have to be put on vertically, put on properly, and it would be the top that would need to be chamfered down. Now the only problem with that is, by the time you get to the left hand edge, will you be truncating the buildings and the trees, clipping the tops of them? So this side we've adjusted it all to make sure we've got a skyline, and then that side we've cut the tops off. It doesn't make sense. It's counterproductive, if you like. So we want the height to be the same. Also, if there's the top sloping, I'm one of these people walk into a room and if the picture's slightly off kilt, it drives me mad. I've got to line it up and do it properly. Right, so that's 2 solutions out of the way. What's the third solution? The third solution is probably an obvious one. These buildings are mock-ups, as you can easily see. So they're not built, but we could actually take the taller ones away and just use short ones, in which case the back scene comes here and you've got a good view over the top. Now there is some variation in height with the 2 buildings at the back there, but I want some kind of focal point buildings, if you like, and that's where these come in. Now not only that, but I like these 2 buildings. They're based on they're all these mock-ups are based on prototypes. So the 2 in the middle, this is a shop that's in Leighton Buzzard called Cooper's, and this one here is a mock-up of a house that's south of Blackfriars Bridge in London, and it's Nell Gwyn's old house. They had a bit more character. They're going to be quite interesting to build, and I would like to do them. Now I could do them as standalone models and have them back upstairs, I suppose, by my modelling desk, but I would like to incorporate them just to have that variety of buildings within the model. So I don't really want to lose them. Next option is, well, next 2 options really more or less the same. Make my own back scenes. Now one I've already mentioned is I could paint, but I think I could get away with it, but it's confidence, isn't it? I don't have the confidence to spend months painting a back scene and then put it up in here and go, actually that's rubbish. It's all the time and it's the materials and it's the cost of doing it, when I'm actually going to rip it out and put something different there. So I could give it a go, but it's just a confidence block, isn't it? Now the other side of that is I could take photographs and stitch them together, and then go and have them printed somewhere into my own back scene that's self-adhesive that I could stick on. Now I know that a lot of the people that do prototypical layouts, those that are based on an existing or a historical railway site or station, do that so that they can build their model, but behind they can have the realistic location background pictures that fit in, you know, that were actually there, and it just all adds to the realism, if you like. Now to do that, I first of all have to take good quality pictures. Probably just about do that, I don't know. But then I've got to have a software package where I can put it all together. And you might be able to get free software packages, but you know, what's the quality, what's the standard up to? And I don't want to pay out for a software package and then only use it once. I haven't got that sort of money to just be frivolous with, if you like. So those two methods are out the way. So I think we're up to about solution number 5 there, and the last one is to go down the commercial back scene. Now the one that I've got on there, I've already said, is 12 inches high, the Pico back scene, but other manufacturers, other producers, suppliers produce different heights. Now ID Backscenes do one that's 15 inches high, so that will bring it up another 3 inches on this level, so up to kind of this height, which is fine for these taller buildings. And there are a couple I've seen actually go to 20 inches high. Now the problem with that is that the only ones of those I've seen are paper based, and they've got to be glued onto the backscene board, so they're not going to work to me. More and more I am looking at the ID Backscenes products, 15 inches high, but do they do one that fits in with my railway and I like the look at? I'm just going to have to check out their catalogue, really, aren't I? Now while we've got all this set up and having a look at it, the other thing I'm still considering, I've got the buildings on a curve anyway, because the road's going to come in from the back here and curve around. But I'm still thinking about the back scene curving around as well. Until you actually see these videos, you automatically go, oh, yeah, just put your back scenes in. But then you start watching these videos about model railways and people say, oh, get rid, you don't have a proper 90-degree corner in the sky, do you? So it starts getting your mind going, well, maybe I should make the effort of not doing a 90-degree corner in my sky. Now looking at various videos, there's a bloke called Steve Brown who's an American model railway bloke, and he's just start building a new layout. And he's done his curves, and he just got a sheet of plywood or something it was, and he's just pushed it in the corner and nailed it in place. So he's got, the curve is just left it the way it came out. Now you see the exhibition layouts and they've got nice curves, especially the smaller ones where the whole back scene is curved, isn't it? Here I haven't got that space, so I am left with a corner that is either going to be a 6-inch radius or an 8-inch radius, something along those lines. Is that going to make enough difference to justify and get away from having that 90-degree corner? I think it might just, so I'm going to give it a go. I'm going to knock up some templates out of cardboard and see how we get on. Right, back at the top of the garden, as you can see, sitting in the sunshine, which is rather nice, and we had a few thoughts over lunch. Had a few thoughts about, and there's another airplane, more holiday makers going off somewhere. And the starlings are just beginning to gather again, so it's going to start getting noisy soon, I would think. Before it does, let's get through this. So we're having thoughts at lunchtime. Now, I think I'm going to stick to the backboards coming in and forming a 90-degree angle. You're not going to see much of it, and I can hide what's there really with putting a tree or a building in the way. Now the material I'm using for the backboard is actually this Foamex again, and it will bend quite nicely and form those corners, so it gets away from those 90-degree bends, doesn't it? But I don't know. I think for ease it's going to be the 90-degree corners. For a better look, I might still bend it. This Foamex, I've got enough that I can, got 2 sheets, one to go either side of the door, 2 sheets that will be put together to go down behind the bridge, and then there's another sheet on the floor which will go across the back underneath the monitors yeah, fair bit of Fomex. It cost a bit of money, but luckily I ordered and got this 4 years ago while I was still working. Now I'm retired, I probably couldn't afford it because it is expensive stuff, but there you go. So how are we going to put this together? The two bits for the back of the behind the bridge I'll lay on the floor. I'll use that Gorilla Glue, and then just to keep it stiffened up I've got some of this strip wood that will go on there, so I'll Gorilla Glue this to the Formex, and instead of clamping it I'm just going to use, I've got an electric staple gun, so I'm just going to staple it to the back of this, and that'll keep it in place, and that will also give it the 2 hours to dry and the 24 hours to cure. And then where the two boards join, I've still got some of the Fomex left from when I made the bridge, so I'm going to just stick that to the back of the seam, and again to keep that rigid. So we might as well get on with it then. So I've now battened it and glued it to the batten and stapled it, so it's got time to cure off. Also on the back here you can just about see I've put about a 3-inch wide strip of Fomex on the back of it as well, and that just keeps the seam from flapping between the two, or the join even, from separating between the two. Okay, so while that's drying, the sheep have gone. They're down in the corner. They didn't like the electric staple gun. As soon as I start banging in the staples, they were off. So why Fomex? Why have I used that? Well, I saw on YouTube a few years ago, and it's when I bought this stuff, was quite a few people that start using it, because when you use these self-adhesive or the paper ones you paste on yourself, the backscene scenes, people were saying that using plywood, especially if it wasn't a very good grade of plywood, you were getting, could see the marks and the grain pattern from the plywood showing through the paper. So Fomex was the thing, because it was nice and smooth and you could stick it on there. What am I doing about the back scene? Well, I think I am going to go down this self-adhesive commercial back scenes. I've been thinking about this painting. I'd like to do it, but I just haven't got the confidence. When I was doing the classes, I got to not too bad a standard. I wouldn't say I was good, but it was an okay standard. And if I spent all this time painting back scenes and then putting them in place thinking, nah, don't like that, then having to start it again, it's going to take days or weeks or even months. And I want to move on with this model railway. All the years I was at work trying to get it done, it wasn't progressive. Now I'm retired, and now I've got those electrics out the way and the track laying out the way. I've got this urge to get it done, get on with it. As they say, they're never finished, but you want to be able to keep going with it, don't you? You don't want any more faults or staggerings or hold-ups on it. So yeah, I'm going to put the Fomex in place. Once this is dried, I'm going to do the screw holes and then put it on the wall. And then I'm going to get the self-adhesive commercial, probably ID Backscene. Some of those look quite nice, and I'll use those. Right, it's been about half an hour or so since the last clip, so the baseboard, well, the battening I think's dried enough. Well, it has dried enough. I've taken it inside to mark up the holes for the screws, and I've drilled the holes ready for it to be screwed on. But just before I take you back in the shed, have you noticed anything? No sheep. I did say it wouldn't be long before they went up to the farms for lambing, but yeah, today's the day by the look of it. Right, let's take you inside. So as you can see, the board doesn't come right up to the corner, and it is the same on the other side, just there. And the reason for that is you can see here that the landscape that I've put in kind of stops in line with the black backboard. Now that's because the gap at the back there was left because I had some thin display shelving units and I needed somewhere to store them, so they were going to be stored down the back there and I could lift them out, and just convenient place to have them. But those boards have now gone, so the scenery will be extended up to that back wall, which means that I have got room to put that 6 or 8 inch radius curve in the corners and get away from having a 90-degree crease in my back scene skylines. So that's the plan at the moment. Well, sheep are back then, and as you can see there's some lambs with them as well, and the sheep have got blue numbers on them, some have got red numbers, but that corresponds, the lambs have also been numbered so they know which lambs go with which sheep. But it's just nice to see. Now, they were away for about 3 days to have the lambing, and they were brought back because we are now actually about a week later than when we started this video. Right, so as another video draws to a close, and it's taken about a week to put this, it should have been a few days, but things just got in the way and it just kept getting extended and extended, so yeah, about a week. Anyway, we have looked at the dilemmas and the concerns of me making a back scene for my model railway. So what have we looked at? We have looked at what materials to use as the board, the mounting board for the back scene to go onto. There was 2 options as far as I was concerned. There was either plywood or there was Foamex. So I've gone down the Foamex route, and that is because, as you know, I suffer from damp in my model railway shed, and I didn't want to use materials that the damp would get into and they would delaminate or deconstruct within a period of time. So Foamex is made out of plastic, and the back scene I want to use is printed on a plastic material, and then that plastic material has got a coat of glue already sprayed on it, obviously because it's self-adhesive. But because they're both flat, the Foamex and the paper, there is a maximum contact between the two, and therefore a maximum adhesion, as long as you get it on there properly and flat and don't end up with bubbles. Otherwise you get moisture in there, which can either expand or contract with summer or winter, and then you start getting problems again. But as long as you get the two together to start with, then you should be fine. Now, the plywood has got grooves in it, so it's not, you don't get that full contact between the self-adhesive back scene and the plywood. You've got little grooves where damp can get in or air can get in, and you haven't got that proper contact and adhesion between the two. However, if you're using plywood, and then you then use either wallpaper paste or one of the other glues like rocket card glue. Now some people use that. Can you imagine how many bottles and how much that costs? Frightening. Or some of the spray adhesives as well. But what you want with plywood is a glue that's going to soak into the plywood and soak into your back scene as well. If it's paper, it's even better, because the glue can soak into both materials, and when you put it together and it dries, it's got that solid adhesion again and the maximum amount of contact. So that's the materials and how to glue it on. And then the other thing we looked at was I had concerns about whether my buildings would sit right in the back scene, whether it would look right, whether I would get the right perspective, would I get the right views. So we had a little play around with different ideas about how we could get the skyline extended so that it was over the top of the buildings, whether that was to reduce the height of the buildings or to move the back scenes, and then how to mould those in, how to transition between different back scenes at different levels and back scenes that had different colours and stuff in it. And then in the end we've gone for the ID back scenes again, but go for their 15-inch tall ones. And we have got to look at the catalogue to see which ones they do, because I still need to be happy with what I'm doing. And then the last look really was how we fitted the back scene in. Once it's on the boards, how we're going to fit it into the railway and surround the railway with it. And so that is just screwing it to the wall, but then it's how we do the corners, whether we have a 90-degree bend, which will put a sharp crease in the skyline, or whether we've got room to get a radius on those corners so that we get a blend and we don't get such a noticeable corner. So as I say, we've covered a fair bit. In the next video we will take that forward. We will hopefully have the back scenes here ready. We can put those on the back scene boards, we can get those mounted up properly, we can sort out the corners, we can finish off the road, the route of the road. We'll get that covered in plywood or something. Again, we want something where when we do the scenery, that's going to adhere and bond properly to the road surface. We need to put the bridge back in place, and we need to really cover just about everything in cling film so that we can start then putting in the isolation or insulation boards rather, cut the shape of the hills we want, get the front on there as well, the fascia, and maybe even start the plaster of Paris cloth, hence covering everything in cling film to stop a mess. So again, thank you for staying with me. Thank you for watching this video. Hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next one. But bye bye for now.